Hello, everyone. My name is Susan Bonds, and I'm the CEO of Infinite Rabbit Holes. And let me introduce for you our Chief Creative Officer on the very end, Alex Lieu. Our head of product, and next to him is Mike Goslin, and our Senior VP of Game Interaction and Design, Michael Borys. So we're excited to be here, and I don't think I need to stand there. I think you can hear me here. So we're going to sit down, and we're going to talk to you about XR immersion, from Indiana Jones to Darth Vader to Batman.
Quick question in the back. So the timer here is 23 minutes. Is that our time, or is our time 40? It's our time. Okay. So for those of you, that's 20 minutes off. So we'll talk faster. All right. So our team has a lot of experience. I mean, we've worked on a few things that you guys probably know. Everything
it's
from.
Actually 45, so you're okay.
Did they say?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're trying to figure this out.
We'll just keep talking.
We'll just keep talking until they stop us. Yeah. All right. So, we've worked on every property imaginable, right? So from Transformers to Pirates of the Caribbean to all kinds of Halo, and this thing is also not working now. This is how it goes. Can someone help me, or you can just go forward on the slides? Oh, there we go. All right, now it's jamming. All right, so we'll go way back.
Don't look.
Don't look, everybody. Don't look. All right, so our team members are amazing. They have worked for every major studio, almost every major studio. Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, tons of game companies. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with these different brands. We've worked in mixed reality. We've done theme park design. We've done all kinds of gaming, from MMOs to mobile to old school online flash games. We have literally made hundreds and hundreds of different experiences. And so we're going to share some of those with you and talk about them a little bit, and then wrap around and talk about why they're relevant. So I'm going to start with a huge project that Susan worked on. For theme parks, and I'm hoping that everybody in this room has actually been on this, but she was actually one of the creative leads of the Indiana Jones adventure at Disneyland.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. I was 12 when I started working on that attraction, so no, just kidding. So it was a fantastic time to be at Disney and work on things that I happen to be an engineer by trade and by education, but to come to Disney and to work on emerging technology platforms, but being integrated into attractions that were 100% focused on the guest experience. So if you've been on Indiana Jones, you know that there's a wonderful storied experience just getting from Adventureland back to the box, which is actually in the parking lot. If you didn't know, the attraction, the ride itself is actually in the parking lot of Disneyland. And so we had to get people back, like almost a mile. So we had to come up with a story to get you back, and also build the anticipation of a ride that let you live the movie. And so what we're going to talk about today is, how does that apply to where we are with XR? We have all this emerging tech that's coming around, and like, what kind of experience can we tell? With Indiana Jones, it was all about creating a physical environment, and everything was informing you as you're kind of walking down through the queue. It's informing you, and it's giving you that kind of, feeling of a little discontent as you're getting closer and closer to some potential danger. And then, of course, there was the ride vehicle itself. Well, you're going to get on a Jeep. You're looking for Indiana Jones, and there's all kinds of bad things that can happen. A lot of money spent in the physical immersion of environment that you see, but also a lot of money spent in the visceral thrill that you got by being on that attraction. So as we get through our talk and talk a little bit more, we just want to give you some context of like some of the examples, and going back and forth between something like this, which was next year, 30 years ago it opened, hard to believe, and also what's happening today.
I still consider it one of the best rides in all theme parks. That said, just out of curiosity, when you first started like looking at animatronics version of Harrison Ford? Was it creepy or was it cool? Like, how did that? I've never asked this question before. This isn't rehearsed.
So, so obviously you can't have an Indiana Jones attraction without Harrison Ford. So we wanted to pick 3 key moments where the audio animatronic version of Harrison Ford was actually helping you. So he's lost in the temple, and you find him first at the gates of doom. He's holding back impending doom. You swerve, and then you see him hanging on a rope above you, which is actually one of the best mechanical effects that I've ever been involved with. If you remember the scene where Indy's hanging over you and the rolling balls in the distance, the room is actually moving away from you. So the vehicle's not moving. So it's actually a wonderful mechanical effect. And then of course you see him at the end. So it was challenging because, then he was pretty famous, but now he's probably one of the most recognizable movie stars in the world. So it was challenging in that sense, but important to have him in those key moments.
All right, well, so in addition to that ride and Mission Space and Disneyland Paris and all kinds of things that Susan got to work on, when she left Disney, she actually worked on, for any of you like old school video gamers, if you guys remember MYST, Susan went on to then work on the online MMO of MYST.
Right, so interestingly enough, the reason how I met the guys from MYST is we were gonna actually do a physical MYST attraction at Walt Disney World behind the Contemporary Resort where there was a bird sanctuary island. And so that's how I met them, and they said, hey, we're doing this massively multiplayer online game. And I was intrigued, again, curiosity about what type of stories could you tell if the world that you're creating is 100% virtual. So we built our own real-time 3D engine, but we also wanted to take what was persistent gaming then away from just leveling up and killing things, and how could you introduce the idea of a mystery and an ancient civilization and characters that you cared about and stories that you followed, and creating a community with a different type of persistent world play. So again, this was early 2000s. It was an experiment, but learning about how people play together collectively in an online gaming environment was really a lot of learning that can be applied to this.
All right, so you've got completely physical, location-based entertainment. Then we've got completely virtual, right, gaming. And then our next project, which Mike Goslin worked on with a huge, talented team of people, was a Star Wars-themed one.
Yeah, this is when I was at Disney. We had been working on a project called Playmation, which was connected wearable toys that all connect to each other and create this great physical play experience. And it didn't live up to our expectations. And so we started thinking about how do we do it better? And we thought, well, AR is the obvious way to do it, because the problem with Playmation, it was all audio and it was in your imagination. It was really hard for people to get the concept until they tried it. So we thought AR is the right storytelling mechanism for it. One of the challenges of lightsabers, though, is you've got to really make the lightsaber match up with the hilt. So we had a physical hilt and a virtual lightsaber. So that's super hard because your hands move really fast. And then the other part is having the field of view to actually see the whole lightsaber. So we ended up having to design our own hardware to do this project. The field of view of the headset is enough to see a lightsaber held out in front of you. So it's about 32 degrees. So that's an example of, leading with storytelling, leading with the experience.
I think that's a really interesting thing. I mean, I don't know. So has anybody in here actually done the Star Wars Jedi Challenge? Look, there's a decent amount of people. Yeah, so I mean, it was a while ago, but what's amazing is that it's really one of the first, I would say one of the first really good participatory examples of AR, right? And so if there's any developers here in the room, talking about 32 degrees and all these really nitpicky little things that you learn along the way are things that you only learn by doing it, right? And so, and then you got to work on another awesome IP, which is, if we recognize that guy.
Yeah, so this isn't it's not a headset experience. It's called Harry Potter Magic Caster Wand. The idea here is that we wanted to let kids, live the dream of actually casting real magic spells in the real world. And so the way we did that was It was a combination of things already in your house, like your TV or your surround sound audio. We had an app, and of course you had a wand that was the center of it all, and so the wand would light up and vibrate. Things would happen with your lights. If you had smart lights, they would all change color at the right time, and so you're basically creating this as if the spell was being cast in the center of the room. The lighting is changing, so you're really, you really feel like you're doing something in the real world. It was kind of an amazing experience, and it was, we had hundreds of spells and connected with all kinds of smart devices. Really difficult to do. It was early for what we were trying to do, and yet still it was really considered a pretty innovative and successful version of this kind of experience.
So if you guys can't tell already, we've worked in a lot of different places, and we've crossed paths in a lot of different ways. And so we've all worked with each other, I don't know, 20 plus years. I'm not going to go more than that. So one of the things that we came together and did is that this was really before AR was happening. It was actually pre-iPhone, originally, where we got together and we were really interested in the idea of merging digital with physical, right? Because we had been in theme parks, we had done MMOs, we had done all these different things. And so we thought about storytelling and gameplay using both the world as a platform and whatever devices or internet we had on our hands. So we developed a genre of gaming that some of you guys might be familiar with, but it was deemed by the players, it was called alternate reality gaming. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the idea that we take a story and we break it into thousands of shards of evidence, and as if they would actually existed. And then we would seed that out in the world. So we could seed it on websites, we could do scavenger hunts that you might find. There might be location-based surprises that we do. And so this is a little out of order, but it's on purpose. One of the big projects that we got to do was for any of you Tron fans out there. I would imagine there's at least some, because this is definitely the place where there would be Tron fans, is at this specific convention. But the idea, if you don't know it, it's the idea that we've got this amazing video gamer programmer who gets zapped into the virtual world onto the grid, and then hijinks ensue from there. And there was a project, there was a film called Tron Legacy that came out that we got to work on maybe 2 years before the release of the film to sort of seed it out in this amazing way in this alternate reality. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, we got the opportunity to recreate Flynn's arcade from the original movie, where people got to have a scavenger hunt at Comic-Con for the day, where they got to unlock it themselves. And people were pulsed in, 50 people at a time, where all the video games were on free play. But every 15 minutes, the Tron machine would be moved aside, and the players would be able to go back into Kevin Flynn's office and see their Shiva laser from the original movie and be de-resed themselves, and then transported to the End of Line Club, a one-to-one recreation of that with a 40-foot screen that had the trailer from the movie, and it was insane. And it was happening, it would seem like 24 hours a day for the entire con, and then as quick as it went up, it's down.
Yeah, so that was one moment in a series of, 100 different unique moments that happen around the world and also happen online. What's interesting about that, how many of you guys have been to Comic-Con? We're in LA, I imagine quite a few too. So this was a time before Comic-Con was crazy. And what I mean by that, Comic-Con used to be about comics, right? And there was some movie announcements and things. When we did this, there was no such thing as the gas lamp quarter being completely overtaken by studios, right? So when we led people on this crazy scavenger hunt through, restaurants and bars in the streets, and they showed up at this warehouse, they had no idea what it was one of the early examples of walking through a door and being completely immersed in this space. And that's, also, it sort of took the theme park and put it into an unexpected place in the world. Right. And so when we're talking about XR, that's a natural evolution for us, because then we get to take people to unexpected places wherever they are. So we really got to scale that up. And I'll talk about this last one. It was a very similar kind of thing. What's interesting is that about 2 years before this film came out and sort of obliterated box office records, right? Because you have to remember, at this time, it wasn't like now where every comic book movie makes $1 billion out of the gate, right? Like that was unheard of before Iron Man and The Dark Knight. So we were approached by the filmmakers. I mean, the producers, Christopher Nolan came in, we're talking about scripts, and I was a huge Batman fan along with these guys, and so it was just, we just had to keep our cool the whole time, like, oh, that's no big deal, we're just talking about Christopher Nolan, about The Dark Knight. But it was a similar experience where what we learned from this, we had the opportunity to, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but put people in the role of citizens of Gotham City. Right? And so we would do things like scavenger hunts where they would be going to random GPS locations all over the world and retrieving packages for the Joker. We would have a full-blown, newspaper that if you did UGC, we'd be sending it, and all in it would be clues that would lead you to all these secret websites and these events, and you never knew what was going to happen. And so again, there were only so many moments where we could bring players into the fiction, either online or it leads you into a back room somewhere in a warehouse where you get to interact with the Joker's goons and solve a puzzle and figure out how to move that story forward. But with XR, it allows us to really push that much farther in a much broader way and have it be more accessible for more people. So we all know that we're all here, right, because mixed reality is exploding. And this is just like a sampling of the top. You guys all know, I'm sure, all these companies, from Apple to Meta, Magic Leap, Samsung, all of that. There's tons of really cool ones on the floor here at AWE, and everybody's like creating the next generation of what, spatial computing is gonna be. And for us, we look at that, and there's really we look at adoption and where this is going to go. So we're huge believers in the space. We feel that in the next 10 years, right, these devices are going to change the way we consume media, the way that we work, the way that we interact with each other, all of these different things. For us, it's not a prediction, it's a foregone conclusion, right? How fast that adoption is going to take place is really going to come down to two things. One is productivity and things that make our lives better, either work or personally, like what are the tool sets that XR can give us that actually enhance our lives, right? And the second one is going to be content and entertainment, right? So Xbox sold all those units, not because it was a new video game system, but because they had Halo, right? And so what is the content that's going to be driving the future for the adoption of these platforms? And our mission is to lead that XR content revolution, right? We really want to bring all of these decades of experience with all of these different properties, with all of the learnings from all of these different projects, and really look at what are the possibilities in this crazy space that we're just all learning about right now, right? Because there's very little data. If you think about how many people have actually interfaced with a headset, right? Or have actually done anything in AR beyond Pokemon Go, it's very, very little. And we learned that the hard way, right? We started making products, we started putting out projects out there, and we did the focus group testing. We were so immersed in this world that it was almost like a shock to hear people go like, I don't understand what's an augmented reality. Like, what are you talking about? And no description of that, as you guys know, actually works. Even videos that you show people do not work. It's a very different thing when you're looking through your mobile device or you're looking through a headset and you experience it first on. So, Susan, you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, so one of the things that I was thinking about, someone was talking with me earlier and said, well, why are you interested in the XR space? And I was thinking about a very famous Walt Disney quote where he said, you can design and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it takes people to make it a reality. And I think about that quote and the term people in two ways. One is that, we have to bring people along. We have to entice them, educate them, excite them with AR content. We have to make it accessible to them. And the second is we need people, like many of you in this room, to make content on this platform that is going to drive adoption, right? And so we started looking around and we were like, headsets are great, but they've got to build an install base. So like, how can we how can we start right now building mixed reality experiences? And so we looked at ARKit and Core AR that were on mobile platforms, and we said, let's build something for that. And in doing that, we've done a lot of research that has kind of informed the products that we actually have here. If you go downstairs on the show floor, we have a couple of products that we've made. And these products are at a much different price point. So our first product, we went back to the Batman IP. It's a world that we love tremendously. And we said, okay, how can we build the world of Gotham City, and instead of coming across the globe with millions of players working to solve a mystery, what if we had something that could scale down to a group of you in your own home? And so we've created a mixed reality product. It's actually in retail now. It's a physical box full of 100 different game pieces, and it has a companion app. And unlike or I shouldn't say unlike, but unlike anything else, these things work together. It doesn't, the digital, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, let's show that.
Yeah, we'll show
and then we'll talk all about it,
yeah.
right? But so again, video is very different than hands-on experience.
It's 10 pounds of awesome.
Yeah,
it really is.
We'll talk about the 10 pounds of awesome in just a second. So let me show you guys what this looks like if you haven't seen it.
Grab your friends and family and immerse yourself in the mysteries of Gotham City. The Arkham Asylum Files, a new home entertainment experience unlike anything you've ever seen. Discover over 100 game pieces and exclusive collectibles. It's not just a game, it's a portal to adventure. Unleash the fun like never before with Joker Vision. Build Gotham City to uncover all its secrets in your very own home.
The chaos that rocked Gotham City this week finally came to an end.
Unravel an epic, visually stunning Batman story featuring Harley Quinn and Gotham City's most infamous villains.
Can you believe I'm back at Arkham Asylum? Not as a patient, silly. I'm a doctor again. I'm even helping the GCPD crack their biggest cases.
Curious artifacts, mysterious documents, decode diabolical puzzles and challenges as you match wits with the Joker and make Gotham City spring to life in amazing 3D augmented reality. Each adventure is hours of collaborative epic fun. The Arkham Asylum Files, mixed reality adventures.
All right, so Michael, since you talked about,
Thank you.
Wow.
It is, if you guys haven't seen it, please come down. Either we'll be there or members of our team will be there. They're demoing it. It is a pretty special experience. It's also very different than anything else that's down on the floor. So Michael, can you explain some of those things that we just saw and what was actually happening there?
Yeah, so it's important to understand again that it's not really the technology that's important, because we never get seduced by the technology, right? We get seduced by the storytelling and things like that, but it's collaborative. And little by little, parts of Gotham City are spilling out into your world. And as you're solving puzzles, there's an app that tells you what to open up and explore next. And every single thing that you unlock, we wanted it to feel like a kid at Christmas, where you don't know what you're gonna get when you dump it out. And I literally have shivers thinking about it, because this is what we live for anyway, this collaborative nature and making people feel great, and we'll talk about that later. The magic of literally stepping into a part of Gotham City that is spawned in your home because of what you've just done through your phone. And I'm not exaggerating that. And Alex is right when he says that it's hard to capture the magic of what that is on the video that you just saw.
So in terms of that, I'll give you guys some specifics. So one of the things that we realized when we started playing with AR is that because everybody thinks that their phone is, this magic supercomputer that can do anything, AR on its own on a mobile device for a lot of people is unspectacular, right? And so it's really interesting because we can, on our phone, right, we can put a 20-foot T-Rex in here, right, and we can look at it and show it to everybody, and everybody go like, wow, that's awesome, for about 30 seconds, right? But there's a huge difference when you give them something that they're familiar with, right? So we're taking like essentially the concept of an escape room meets a board game, right? It's actually 10 hours long, which we'll speak to over designing later. But it's a very, very different thing when people are immersed into a gameplay and doing things that are familiar, and then they put the AR and they see it come to life. Because they build a model of the building all of a sudden, in the videos really quickly, but you look at the Jumbotron in Gotham City and all of a sudden live action video is playing, right? And it's not any necessarily technically more spectacular than the 20-foot T-Rex, but people are like, what is this witchcraft magic, right? Like, what's happening on this thing that I'm touching and holding and feeling?
Well, there's meaning now, right? Because you have unlocked the story and that supports it.
Yeah.
It's the meaning, it's the connection for sure.
So come down and play it. There's more stuff here, but here's some beautiful words people have said and some cool awards that we've won. But here's where we kind of want to open it up. I want to open it up a little bit more to discussion and questions. We look at what we're doing as sort of designing for the future, right? And so we've got a couple topics we want to cover. One of them is this idea of true mixed reality. Anybody want to jump in and talk about this?
Well, I feel like we're always blurring the lines of exactly that. Before, our world was the platform. It could be a bowling ball in another city. It could be your home. It could be online. It could be mobile. Every single object in that experience that you said could be something that we're going to scan that brings you some wonder and magic, and that's super important, I think. True mixed reality is having no limits of what it is that we're going to be interacting with, I think. Anything is a storytelling mechanism.
I also think that before, when we were talking about indie and we're talking about MYST, it's like, well, there's the physical world, there's the completely virtual world. It's like with true mixed reality, you're not really tied to not only one or the other or a mixture of the two, but you can play around with scale and intimacy. And I think that when you see true mixed reality, which is using whatever extended reality that you have at the moment to serve the story, that you have a lot of opportunities as a storyteller to really bring people closer into the fiction.
Yeah, I think in terms of the philosophy of how we approach things, this might seem obvious to people, but a lot of the times people really miss the mark here, right? Especially when sort of what we see the most is people graduating, sort of like going from VR to AR. It was kind of like when people were going from traditional gaming to online or mobile, right? There's a translation that doesn't make sense. So you guys have heard it a million times of design experiences that actually incorporate the technology, and it should be something new that can be used with the technology, or else why do it, right? Like, I don't know how many of you guys have been in these, but I've watched way too many VR movies that I would have rather have seen on screen, right? And the experience is, I would say at best it's marginally better, even if it's at all better, right? And so as content creators and developers, it's really important for us to think about this. And so when we talk about true mixed reality, we're not just talking about, hey, we can map your wall and your floor and we can put something there, right? We're not just saying that like, oh, it's AR and it's on your table. What we're saying is, how do you make your players, your audience members, feel like this is something that's important or real in their space? Right, and that's what we mean by true mixed reality. Do you have anything?
I would add to that having the mix of physical things and virtual things is really important too, because that creates this level of immersion that you don't get when you're purely like observing stuff. When you're feeling it, when you're holding the lightsaber, when you're picking up the piece of the puzzle, like that really immerses you in the story in a way that just purely the passive digital does not. And so I think, storytelling is all about keeping people's attention, and you have their attention when they're immersed. So that's why it's really key to us.
Yeah, and so you guys have brought up storytelling a lot recently.
Right.
I don't know where you want to go with this. Do you want to go with the story of the box? Do you want to go with why it's important?
Well, I mean, I'll just tell you a little bit about the story of the box. So in our Arkham Asylum adventures, Harley Quinn has decided she's broken up with the Joker, and she's decided to go back to Arkham and take up her job as a therapist. And as she does, you're kind of introduced to not only the rogue gallery, but also a new kind of anti-hero, a new vigilante that's in town. And it turns out that it's this misunderstood kid. And unlike other villains in the Batman universe, he comes from a good home. And so what I love about the storytelling aspect of unlocking things in this box is like, you get to read things like his psychology profile. And what happens, Mike?
This psychology profile is the villain from the perspective of the doctors at Arkham Asylum. You know, he's a genius kid. He can't be trusted. You know, it's just giving you this basic bit of elements about him. But when you scan it with this app, you get the vision from the perspective of the villain himself, who happens to be a codemaster. And so what you're delivered is a literal alternate reality of the thing that you're looking at in the most meaningful way possible. It's sort of poetic in that it's using the tech to deliver the technology to give you something extra. And then when you look at it, as it so happens, because he's a hacker, it is a screen of text that you'd have typed on a CRT machine, right? Now, as it goes, it's flickering, and you're reading about it, and you're like, oh, I get it. This is his manifesto, pretty much. So it's the alternate version of that. And then when you tilt your hand, because humans aren't going to hold it perfectly horizontal, all of a sudden letters start tipping off, and then you get game mechanic that is really, really fun and appropriate to what's happening. And then over time, letters are slipping off, revealing only the letters that exist that are super important, and the lines of code are misaligned, and all you have to do is realign them, which brings this up too. This is a meaningful game mechanic, but it's not about busting your brain. It's about giving you magical moments that deliver magical moments for the story, and it's kind of poetic and exciting. Those are the things that drive me and give me, look, it's happening again.
So I think what you guys are, so what we're really pointing to is that this overall theme, right? And Mike, maybe you can jump in on this one, of how we already, part of it is just it being beaten into us by the Disney, that we all come from, of how important storytelling is. Like walking down Main Street, right? Like every single little detail is about the guest experience and is, whether you see it or realize it or not, it's been designed for you to have a very specific feeling. It is telling a story, right? And so much when we're designing games or entertainment, right? We know story is important, but those details are what brings it together, right? What's that emotional connection? Because otherwise, you're just putting out more media. Like, what's the difference between, why are the beloved properties that you love so beloved, right? It's because of the characters and the storytelling and those details.
Yeah, and I think there's some great moments in some of the things we've done where you have this emotional connection with a character or with a situation, and that's the key. That's what you really anchor on when you're telling these stories. It's those moments when you feel that emotion, like, you high five your partner who's virtual, but you feel like you just accomplished something together. Like, those are really important to us because
that connection, Mike.
Those are the ones you remember.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting because as we've been watching people play the game, we get a couple of comments back. One is that, if parents are playing it with their kids, or their kids' friends, it's like, wow, this is I can't keep up with my son or my daughter on Xbox, but like we can play this game and I'm actually bringing a lot to it because it requires some critical thinking. And as we know, no one under 25 can critically.
Whoa.
Okay, I'm saying that as a mom, just my kids maybe. But anyway, the aspect of like we can all shine in this experience because it's a different type of gameplay, but also a lot of times we'd see moms kind of hang back and go, this isn't my thing. I don't really, but then once they start unlocking the story, there's this misunderstood kid. He's trying to do the right thing. He goes about it the wrong way. He's getting exploited by people. All of a sudden, they're like, I need to find out where this goes. And they kind of take over. So the importance of storytelling can really draw in all the different types of audiences that you want to try out this new art form, because it is a new art form.
That's a really good point. And so that kind of leads us to this next thing, right? Which is, again, we've heard it a million times, but what's our take on this, right? The idea of audience empowerment.
We're going to make you feel smart. We're going to make you feel amazing. We're going to make you, the wallflower, feel like alpha. And then maybe reverse that, like Susan said. It's not against you. We are working with you. We're in a dance. We want you to finish the experience. What is the sense of designing a beautiful game or writing a beautiful story that you never finish? We want you to get to the end. I will stop talking now.
No, that's a really interesting point, because I think as for the game designers in the room, right, and especially because when we design such puzzle-heavy mechanics, this particular, if I were to distill it for this room, this audience, think of it as a 10-hour escape room in a box that magically comes to life, that's broken up into chapters, so you can either binge it, like Mike and his friends will absolutely do, or you can use it as digital currency. So as you're playing with your family and your kid, you're like, hey, we'll do the next 2 chapters after you finish that homework. But the idea, sometimes you get very enamored as a designer in how clever you are, or how challenging you can make something, or how beautifully designed and intricate this thing is, right? And at the end of the day, if it's not fun, or if people don't get through it, like Michael's saying, what's the point? So we view our jobs as content creators as making, like you said, making people feel special, making people feel smart, because people are, right? Our thing is not about, hey, how can we stump people? And I think that's a mistake that a lot of game developers make, right? We're gonna make this the hardest game. I mean, there are awesome games though, right? I expect you to die. You're gonna die.
That's the point.
That's the point. But I think that's a really critical thing in thinking about game design is what does success look like for you, right? And success is people get through it and they love it and they want the next title.
And I would say one other thing that we put a high value on is working together. So making you feel great and smart as a team, that's even more powerful, because now you're forming connections with your colleagues, your family, whoever you're playing with. And we think that elevates the experience in a way that just doing things on your own.
The symbiotic relationship that this person needs to be looking at this while the thing is happening, while that's happening, yes, that is great.
So I'm gonna jump forward because we got 8 minutes left. All right, so design challenges then in that sort of, so what is our experience? Do you guys have any specific anecdotes about something that surprised you, or was difficult, in terms of
design is hard, Alex. No, printing is difficult. That can be difficult, timeline. Printing can be difficult, expectations.
Oh, physical product
what you
production,
think is fun, and you play it, and you're like, that could be ramped up. And then, but sometimes it's the opposite, right? Sometimes it's the opposite. But for the most part, I think it is the design that's the difficult thing. What do you think?
Well, I would agree with that. Doing physical stuff, there's a reason not everybody does it.
Right.
It has its own set of challenges.
I mean, I think that it has been challenging to marry physical objects with mobile AR, but our research is showing that if again, going back to what Alex said about seeing a dinosaur on your phone, it's like when someone is holding a physical card and we magically turn it through looking through your iPad into a TV, or they're looking at a building with a graphic and then you turn that into Times Square, that is translating to more magic, even though you don't need it. You don't need that physical thing. So there is, again, going back to the education process of migrating people to really understanding mixed reality, we are finding that there is some benefits to having physical elements. They have value because of the meaning that you give them in the story, but then they're also helping educate people into mixed reality.
So I know we're talking a lot about the physical product because we're showing that, and there's secret stuff that we can't show here yet, but I want you to know that we have another physical product that we're demoing downstairs. It's called Impossible Things. We'll show you a pretty graphic of that in a second. But we're also, right now, our team is knee-deep in headset development. So can't say which ones, and can't publicly release it right now, but the ones you would imagine are the 2 big ones are the ones that we're working on, and it is awesome. And what I say is a design challenge there, and I really can't wait for you guys to see this stuff, but is designing things at the appropriate level, right? We're so used to console games and running around in virtual worlds, and finally the VR games in the last couple of years have actually become playable, and some of them are interesting and fun, right? But in fact, Goslin, you're the one who really pushes this concept at our studio, is that it's an unfamiliar space, right? XR is an unfamiliar space for most people. So your expectations when you're surrounded in your environment by all of these things you're not used to, and the magic is there, right? It's what you need to do in many ways is a lot simpler than you think. Like complication in that environment is really, and I'll give you an example from our own product of a design challenge. So it's a beautiful, amazing moment. Way deep in the Arkham files, there's a point where, and I'm not gonna spoil too much of the story, but a bank gets robbed and you need to go investigate the scene of the crime. You grab one of these physical envelopes, you put it on your floor, and it spawns a bank vault. And it's busted and all the gears are broken, and you find the evidence digitally, you open up an envelope, there's all these gears, you put it behind your device and they turn into 3D gears, and you're literally fixing the life-size bank vault in your living room that you walk into, right? What we notice is, as cool and enamored as we are with that, it's not impossible, but it's one of the more difficult experiences in the box. Not just from the technology, which is kind of hard, and we really, it's a place where we're over-designing, but also that it's very abstract, right? Because look what you're asking your audience to do. Okay, this piece of paper is now a gear. There's this virtual bank vault in your room. There's this very complicated set of puzzles and directions on how to get these things in there. Whereas if we had just dialed that back and said, hey, there's 4 gears that you have to place on this thing, we would have made people go like, wow, that was amazing and easy, versus there's 20 minutes of okay, the blue gear can't touch the black gear, and this one's made out of this, and it has so many teeth. So there's an example where when you're in this space, just as a game designer and a developer, just be careful about, you're going to be more ambitious in what you want to make than what people might be able to do in this space. And it's a really valuable lesson to learn. And so also along those lines is this idea of invisible tech. So we only have a few minutes. Can we quickly talk about this really?
So one of the things that, going back to Indiana Jones, one of the things that we did was we created this amazing ride vehicle. And I'll speak to all the developers in the room. We were so enamored with what this vehicle was capable of doing. And one of the things that it was capable of doing was having multiple programs. So we had 50 off-board computers. So at a dozen places along the ride, we created 3 or 4 variations of the program because the vehicle was capable of doing it. And we, in all the PR materials, we were saying there's 110,000 combinations of the Indy ride. And then, opening day, people go on the ride, they're coming out. You're like, what happened? It's like, well, there were snakes, and I was thrown, and there was this, and there was fire, and, and it made no difference. It literally, all of that, it was an amazing feature for the vehicle, but it literally made no difference. So that's one example of where technology needs to serve the story and serve the experience. And if done right, it's really magic, and you don't need to make that a talking point. I'll just...
Yeah, it's very hard to hide the fact that you're using a mobile device or a headset. But as developers, I think the short path here that we want to say is that you want to make the content so compelling that they forget that they're using the device. Right? That's the goal. That's where you win. And then Michael is actually, for those of you guys who want to hit him up after, I'm just kidding, he hates this, but he's a practicing magician member of the Magic Castle. So for those of you guys from LA, he is that guy. But it's very relevant here. So can you tell us why?
Yeah, so we all know that as kids, magic is real. Absolutely, it's real. And then somehow we grew up and we realized maybe it's not, but we should just keep that in our minds, right? We know we've won when we've created a headset experience or an AR experience with the phone, where a table spawns in our room and a building comes here, or there's something on the table and you need to go on the other side. Rather than walking through like Godzilla, people are tiptoeing around this thing that doesn't exist because it's real.
Yeah.
We have created situations where people are children again. And the magic is no difference. There is no difference between magic, rabbit out of a hat, or magical moments that you have with a friend, or the magical moments that we're creating in games, or that feeling of solving something. It's the same endorphins that you get. And making people feel like kids again, what could be better than that? And we have a gift.
And that's why we're so excited about XR. right? Because that's what it does. We've literally seen people do that, right? We know it's not real, but they're avoiding it because it's sitting in their room. We actually had someone with a particular headset on that has a battery pack, right? And they tried to put the battery pack on the virtual table, and we had to catch it, right? Because it was like, hey, this thing's worth a few $1,000s, so we probably don't want to trash it. Anyway, we're coming close to the end here.
Yeah, last slide.
Yeah, we have this amazing new thing that it's our original content. We're actually, it's sort of the backstory to our company, Infinite Rabbit Holes. And it's the idea that every door, every product we make, whether it's headset or mobile or some future thing that we make, is a portal to adventure. And so we have our character Jervis. We have this new, you can see a quick little early sneak peek downstairs. It's called Impossible Things, but we're really gonna blow this out. And what we wanna say to all of you guys is that we're in this exciting space, and we really believe that right now is a seminal moment. It's like when the internet started exploding. It's like, when we first played, the GameCube or Nintendo 64, right? Like Mario World, like changed gaming, right? And we think that's where we are now, and the future of fun is here. So thank you guys.
All right.
All right.
Good job.